Hello, Joe Markiewicz here with today's Liberty Dispatch. Well, we're coming into the election season. I don't know if I should even go into that right now. So much to talk about, so much contention, competition, so much division and strife. Well, I don't want to get into that. The thing that I know how to do is I can go back to the origins of America. Our charter documents, the Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, which really defines who we are as a people, the size and scope of government, the rights that we have as individuals, and really which define our personal freedom, our political freedom, our economic freedom, our spiritual freedom. So I want to talk about this. Today's topic of today's Liberty Dispatch, today's topic is this, and I'm going to talk about the 4 pillars of our freedom. And I'm going to start it off with this. This is something that I believe it's very important for us to really realize that if there is no liberty, then it is impossible to have happiness and self-determination. Going back to the Declaration of Independence, you all know it well. That we hold these truths to be self-evident. You know, that's it. I mean, what a statement. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What does that tell you? That our rights do not come from man, our rights do not come from government, that these are unchangeable, inalienable. That's what that means. They're unchangeable. God has given us, our Creator has given us those rights, and no man and no government could ever take them away. I want to talk about the 4 pillars of freedom. You cannot have personal freedom without economic freedom. You cannot have economic freedom without political freedom, and you cannot have political freedom without spiritual freedom. I want to start with that last statement. Our founding fathers believed this, and I agree with them, that human nature, human beings, are of great value. That we have a Creator who loved us so much that He put His Spirit inside of us. And that we're not here to just exist. God has a purpose for you and I on this earth. We're supposed to do something with our life. And God imparted in individuals like you and I, people, the spark of life and the great gift of life, and that we are supposed to appreciate that every person has value, and our founders believed that wholeheartedly. You know, the founders and many that have gone on since have talked to us about how we treat each other, that we should respect each other. We should respect the laws of the land. We should pray for our leaders and pray for those in authority. That actually those truths, those spiritual truths, which is all is the foundation of, is that God created you and me of great value, that we are supposed to learn how to interact with each other, deal with each other, how we're supposed to interact in society, what our government is supposed to look like. Clearly, our founders believe that our government should be limited, and the limitations within government are clearly defined within our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but if you read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that there is virtually no language that says man or people, we can't do something. In fact, the majority of all the can't do's and limitations and restraints are all about government. It really comes down to this: who is in power? Are the people in power, or is our government in power? Let's speak about this, that we cannot have political freedom without spiritual freedom. That you and I are of great value. Our rights come from heaven. They're given to us by our Creator. and that no man and no government can ever take it away. So let's go right from the top. You cannot have personal freedom without economic freedom. If you do not have a level playing field, if you do not have free enterprise or capitalism, if you do not have that, then it's impossible for you to be personally free. Otherwise, we're just subjects of the king, a monarchy, a dictatorship, the government. We are really here in this earth just to do one thing, and that is to protect the power of a dictator or a tyrant or a government. That is not America. You cannot have personal freedom without economic freedom. We have the freedom to enterprise, to change our economic trajectory, take care of our families, change our future by working hard and sacrifice and educating ourselves and providing a service or a product that the economy needs and people need. And if you provide a better service than the next person, that you will make the sale, you will be able to be paid. You should be paid for what you're worth. This is all rooted in the concept of self-determination. Very important. So let's keep going. You cannot have economic freedom without political freedom. The government is restrained in many ways. The government's primary responsibility is to protect the rights and to secure the rights of individuals. And those rights, our rights, your rights, my rights, are clearly defined within the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And the government is supposed to secure and protect those rights. And that is it. Really. Limited government. So you cannot have economic freedom without political freedom. You cannot have political freedom without spiritual freedom. Religious liberty is so vital in a free society for you and I to worship as we desire. And that no government can tell us that we have to worship in a certain way or a certain God, or you go to a certain church. It's never meant that way. And I appreciate the fact that our current president is an advocate for religious liberty. I'm really concerned about other candidates that are currently running because they never talk about religious liberty, and I think it's for a very good reason. So as I wrap up, let me read this to you, and I know, and I'll be almost done with this. Remember, in this election, you have to ask yourself, if you are really someone who cherishes your liberty and your freedom, who do you want in power? Well, I want this guy and I want that guy. No, I'm not asking that. I want to ask you this. Who do you want in power? Do you want the people to be in power? Or do you want the government to be in power? It's entirely up to you. The right, the left. All right? As Ronald Reagan said, it's not necessarily just right and left. It's up and down. Who's in power? The people or government? Ronald Reagan said this in October of 1964, one of the greatest speeches I have ever heard in my life. It is called A Time for Choosing. Ronald Reagan, vintage, 1964. An excerpt of that is this. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we could plan them for ourselves. If that doesn't say it all, I don't know what is. Are we submitting our lives to elites who live in a far distant capital and let them plan our lives, or are we better planning our own lives? Vintage Ronald Reagan. So as I wrap up this Liberty Dispatch, I'll tell you this, today's topic, the 4 pillars of freedom: personal freedom, economic freedom, political freedom, and spiritual freedom. This is Joe Markiewicz with today's Liberty Dispatch.